Hello and welcome to another episode of the Career Reset podcast. So if you don't know me, my name is Carolina and I am a career coach. I work with people who want to change jobs or find jobs and who are just really confused about what they want or how to get it. And today I will actually be talking about a topic very directly related to my day-to-day work. I think this is the topic I get asked about the most, and that is how to find the right career path. Like, what should you actually be doing? And there are different ways people ask me this. It can either be what I should do, I don't know what I'm even interested in, what would be the smart thing to do, what's like happening in the market and what's gonna happen in the future. Now a lot of the conversations are also around how AI will impact our careers. I've had a few clients in the past few months who actually very tangibly are being replaced by AI. It's not so direct, but the type of work they used to do, for example, their employer now has different expectations, or those people were freelancers and now they simply can't anymore find clients for this type of work because AI can do a good enough job. So deciding on the right career is really the first and most important steps we need to do. It's where it all begins and it's what people struggle with the most. I typically work with people who work in business or tech. I have had a few clients from other areas, like who work in academia and so on, but business and tech people are my people mainly. And the career paths in these fields are not usually very well defined. Like if you think of a doctor or a teacher or these kinds of jobs that we used to say when we were kids, that when I grow up, I want to be, and we thought of one of these very clearly defined professions. But I think most of us now work in jobs that we didn't even know existed. Maybe like up until we were 20 or even while we were at university, we still didn't know that the job we do now, that is something that actually exists in the world. I for sure did not know that a career coach is a thing. I didn't know what that person does, and I did not consider that as the career direction I want to be taking. So maybe you are the same case as me, and it can often end up that we study something business and tech related, we have absolutely no clue what's that gonna actually translate into in terms of jobs. Then we end up in some kind of a job after graduation, and then a few years down the line we actually realize that it's maybe not something closely aligned with our interests, so we start exploring what else is out there and what would be then the right field for us. So today I want to talk about how to make that big decision, what's the right career for you, and I want to start with why is it so difficult actually to come up with the decision? Because I'm sure this podcast is not the first resource you found and you're consuming regarding to making the right career choice. And actually in the past few weeks, I have been working on search engine optimization. Yes, that's something that I am now able to do. If you are not familiar what it is, it's just like making your website more easily findable on Google or other search engines. And I had to do keyword research. So I had to find what kind of words people find when they are looking for a service like mine. In a very simplest terms, if any marketing SEO specialist is listening to this, I am sorry that I'm completely butchering it, but this is as far as my understanding goes. And I was surprised that what gets searched for the most is some kind of quiz, like what kind of career should I have quiz, career direction quiz, what's the right job for me quiz. And my marketing consultant was telling me that you should create that kind of quiz. That would be a great lead magnet, throwing more random marketing words here. But I said that I cannot create something like that, because if it really was that easy, then my business would not exist. Like why people come to me is that there simply isn't that super easy way to find the right career for you. And that's the second part of this podcast, commit to it. And I know it can sound so, so, so appealing that we will just go online, find a quiz, fill in a couple of questions, and then it will spit out the right career direction for us, and that's it. But even when we do have the answer, that just introduces so many more questions that, okay, like, so what does that even mean? How do I find jobs in this field? Are there good salaries? Are there many jobs? Do I have what it takes? So finding the right career path within business or tech can be very, very challenging, and also because those fields are just changing so much, and what was really in demand a few years ago is no longer the case. There are all the time new jobs, new job titles being introduced. The jobs are changing what they actually consist of. So it's a very difficult area to navigate, and that's why some kind of simple quiz, as appealing as it can sound, will not do the trick. And maybe you have been to some personality test or some kind of profiling. I went to something like that, I think when I was 17 or something, to help me pick the right university. What should I apply to study? Because back then that seems like the biggest decision ever that will define the rest of your life, even though most people that I know do not work in the field of their studies, and it just doesn't really matter where and what you study. But of course, at that age, it feels like the biggest life-defining decision, and if you make the wrong decision, it's gonna define the rest of your life. If I have any teenagers listening to this, don't worry, it doesn't matter, just pick whatever you want to study. That's basically my answer. But I went to this profiling, and there were a lot of different personality tests. There was this draw a tree, and then the person, I think it was a psychologist, and then she drew some conclusions from it, but those conclusions weren't like you should be a firefighter. The conclusions were you should work in some logical field, or it was just very abstract, the results, so it didn't help much, since I don't even remember the results. Well, it's been a few years since I was 17, but also it didn't give me anything specific to actually then base my next decision on. So let's just agree that there is no easy way. But I think that where people often get stuck with, and I have said this many times on the podcast, is either we think that there is some super quick and easy solutions, like that ChatGPT will tell me what's the right career for me after I give it a 2-sentence prompt, or we think that it's something like super complex, big project where you need to take into consideration thousands of different aspects, and you need to think short term and long term, and you need to think your passions, but also what's smart. And that sounds overwhelming. Even just talking about it sounds overwhelming. But by doing this work of helping people figure out their right direction for many years now, I know that the truth is somewhere in the middle. It is not as easy as taking an online quiz, and at the same time, it is really not something that is that overwhelming. And the annoying thing, I don't think it's annoying, but many people think it's annoying, with finding the right career. I hosted a webinar 2 weeks ago, and somebody corrected my pronunciation of the word career, because I pronounce it like career, which means something different. And I know it because when I edit these podcasts, I edit them based off of transcript. So I have the transcript, and then I delete a sentence or a word, and then it like cuts the video. Does that make any sense? I hope it does. And it always transcribes career as carrier. And I wonder, what's that about? How am I supposed to pronounce it differently? And then I went to Google Translate, and I listened to the pronunciation many times, and it's about the accent, that I shouldn't say carrier but career. So I will try to be mindful about it, but I rely on all of your intelligence that you know what I mean. And if you haven't noticed yet, English is not my first language, shocker. If you don't know, I'm originally from Czech Republic, and people from Czech Republic can have quite a strong accent. Always when I listen to some politicians or just my fellow countrymen and women speaking, I can hear it. There are some very specific accent mistakes that I'm sure I make as well, but I speak English like it's the language I use on a daily basis. I speak English with my husband. I work in English. I use it more than any other language. And I think my English is decent, but there are still certain words I am unable to pronounce. Career being one of them. So sorry for getting sidetracked, but it is now very distracting me because I will use the word career quite many times in this podcast, and I will always get stuck in my mind if I pronounced it correctly or not. And I'm really curious what the podcast software in the transcription will show me. Anyway, what I was talking about was why is it so difficult to find the right career direction? I think when people get in touch with me and they're interested in hiring me as their coach, what they expect is that they're going to tell me, this is what I did in the past, this is what I'm interested in, I want a good salary, stable job in a nice company, tell me what I should be doing. And that I will tell them the exact field they should get into. Does not work like that because typically I would need to get to know you much longer to give you the right answer, but it is not my place to make decisions for anyone what is the right career for them. I am here to give you the tools and different perspectives how you can think about it. And the first important tool and perspective is to remove the pressure. Like, how many LinkedIn posts have you read that started, "We live in a fast-paced changing world"? It's the biggest cliche ever, but it is also true. But even though that is true, we still have this idea that we should have some kind of a very long-term plan for our career. We should know where we are going. We should know where we want to be in 5 years. We should know where we want to be in 10 years. And that is nonsense because nobody knows what's gonna happen. Like, if you think, okay, 5 years ago we're still in the middle of COVID, in middle of lockdowns and stuff, and I don't think many of us would predict 5 years ago where we would be now with the state of the world, let alone with our career. So this is my permission to you to ditch all kind of long-term career planning from now on. But again, as with everything, I cannot give like a prescriptive answer to everyone. So there are some people who have a very clear career. For example, my sister-in-law for a very long time wanted to work for the EU, and she took many steps, worked really hard to make it happen. She studied abroad, she took some tests, she moved to Brussels and all these kinds of things, and then she succeeded, and now she is working for the EU. But that's a type of a very specific goal that then quite clearly determines the steps you need to take. Or some people have the goal of being an entrepreneur or working some reduced hours or some life-oriented goal of living in a certain country or something like that. But I think vast majority of people don't have some goal, and you could, of course, I can help you define it, but I also think it's not that necessary, and you can just go pretty much with what you are drawn to right now. I am now spilling one of the big secrets already this early into the podcast, that you actually don't need a long-term career plan, and you can just go with whatever interests you at the moment and trust that whatever happens, you will be able to figure it out later on. Because when I ask people to tell me how their career went up until now, like what was the trajectory, it's very rarely somehow like deliberate that I really wanted to do this, so I took this course and applied to this company. What I hear most often is, I just ended up in this job, then I was offered a promotion, then I got laid off, so I joined this company. Like, there is lack of, as people say very often in Finland, this like red thread, meaning some theme that you can see in the career path, but it's like as if that was wrong and now they want to do it correctly. So now they need the theme and the narrative and the plan forward. And then it just really depends that what do you want, basically. So if you do have some very specific ambitious goals, you want to get into some C-level positions, you want to become an entrepreneur, you want to lead your own team, then those are specific goals that require taking specific actions. But if you don't have those goals and you just want to have the next job that is more interesting and pays more than your current job, then you don't need to think about it from the lens of where I want to be in 10 years. If you don't know where you want to be in 10 years, you don't need to know. You have my permission here to not know where you want to be in 10 years. I don't know where I want to be in 10 years. I don't know where I want to be next year. I am extremely short-term focused. Like, I want to keep having my business. I want to keep working for myself. But what that will look like specifically, I am leaving up to future me to decide that. Of course, present day me is doing a lot of work, like setting myself up for even having these choices. So as I talk a lot on this podcast, that wherever you are in your career, you should be investing a lot of time into building your network and building your personal brand. Those are extremely important career assets that you will benefit from wherever you want to go in the future. So I'm acting on my own advice so that I know that whatever happens in the future, if I change my mind or if I have to find a job or anything, I know that I have a really good network, a really good personal brand, I have audience, I have skills, I have all in place so that I have that luxury to change my mind and go after something. So before you start making any kind of big career decisions and career moves, just ask yourself, how are you on these career assets? So how is your network? How is your personal brand? And if they are right now 0, then you can make the best decisions about your career directions, but it's most probably not gonna happen until you start investing time in those activities. And then I often get into this argument loop with my clients that I tell them, right now you need to start working on your visibility because there are so many cool opportunities out there, but nobody is considering you for them. People who are visible and who have a strong personal brand and strong network, they are being handed these opportunities and you are just watching from the sidelines trying to decide what's the best direction for you. And then they tell me, I will start networking and working on my personal brand when I know the right direction. So I would recommend not waiting, but start doing that right now, because even if you are worried that you will build the wrong personal brand around the wrong field, if right now your LinkedIn profile is dormant and nothing is happening there, that is the worst possible scenario. And that brings me to a common thing I discuss with my clients. This very strong fear of making the wrong choice when it comes to their next career step. So they are worried they will join a field that will be replaced by AI. They are worried that they will join a company that will go bankrupt. They are worried that they will say yes to some job and then a better job with more money will open up a week later. And in a way, those fears are valid, but those are just the risks that are always there. You cannot predict it. Of course, sometimes there are very clear signs and you should, of course, act on these signs, but typically that's just the world we live in. So if we wait to live in a very steady and secure world, we might wait forever and waste a lot of time and money in the process. So this fear of making the wrong choice, that is one of the very common obstacles of actually making a decision. And I want to just bring to your awareness that not making a decision is decision in and of itself that is preventing you from many opportunities. So it can seem like by not committing, you are keeping a lot of doors open, but that's just a very theoretical concept, because in reality, nobody is coming to you with opportunities, and instead other people are considered for these opportunities, those people who are more deliberate about what they want. So it's like, yes, in theory, those options are there, but the options are not there for you, which might seem quite brutal, but that is the truth. Like, often people will tell me, I feel like I am closing doors and excluding opportunities, and I ask, what opportunities? You are here with me, you're hiring me as your coach, so clearly, you're not being showered with exciting opportunities. Yes, they are there. The companies are hiring for lots of different people, but they are not necessarily considering you for these opportunities because you are unwilling to actually decide and commit on one specific direction. And although it's hard to generalize what is attractive or unattractive in a professional in general, one thing is for sure, and that is people who are very certain about what they want and where they want to go, and they are very outspoken about it. It's often the thing that is decisive in interviews. So I was just talking with one client that he said he is not proceeding in interviews and he doesn't know why, and that often the feedback is that they decided to go with more experienced candidate. But I think that that's a very interesting reason, because the seniority is something you already know from the CV, from the LinkedIn profile before the first round of interview. Like, seniority and lack of experience is the reason why you are not even invited to the interview. But if you go through 3 or 4 rounds and then they tell you, we decided to go with a more experienced candidate, it's a bit like, didn't you know sooner that I am less experienced candidate? And what actually often happens there, well, obviously you will never have in a recruitment process a situation where you would have, let's say, 5 people with the exact same amount and type of experience. Like, always there will be someone slightly more or slightly less experienced. But then what it comes down to, the company wants to see that you actually want the job. And this is such an important step that many people skip over. But I can tell you that when I was a recruiter, that was a very clear red flag when I had some people in the interview who were giving good answers. They on paper were qualified. I didn't have any doubt that they would be good at that job. But where I did have quite a serious doubt is whether they actually want the job, because they were just going through the motions, answering and giving examples and everything. But then if I contrasted that with interviewing someone who was very excited about the job and excited about the company, and they clearly did their research and they weren't desperate, but they were really, really interested in that job. They asked good questions, and those were the things that then separated them, and those could even compensate, for example, for lack of experience. But again, those were the people who were much clearer on the right career direction they wanted to take, and they knew that the job they were interviewing for was nicely aligned with what they're actually looking for. So they didn't have to think a lot that, why did you apply for this job? Why do you want this job? They knew why they want this job, because they have thought about what is the right career direction for them. Or also, when I was doing headhunting, I was just directly contacting people on LinkedIn and inviting them to interview. It's such a big difference when some people just list their experience, like, okay, I did this, I work there, I have these skills, and they just left it there for me to decide what jobs would that be useful for. Or then there were people who, in their headline or in the about section, gave me a specific paragraph that said, in my next job, I am looking for, I don't know, international company that is at growth stage, that is working on developing a new software product. And I thought that, oh my God, that is exactly the opportunity I am considering people for. Like, this could be a really good match. So deciding on the right career direction is 3 steps. It's deciding, it's committing, and it's being outspoken about it. And only if you meet all these 3 criteria, then the opportunities will start coming to you. But if you think that right now you're not really doing much, so you are in theory open to many different directions, but these directions aren't necessarily interested in you, if that makes any sense. And where I think people often go wrong on deciding the direction is also that they try to involve so many different aspects to the point where it overwhelms them. And that's not only about jobs. It's also, for example, we are thinking about moving, about buying a new apartment with my husband. And there are so many different aspects you can look at it. You obviously need to think about the apartment itself, about the rooms, the layout, the size. Does it have a kitchen and living room connected? Does it have one bathroom, two bathrooms? Does it have a sauna? Very important here in Finland. And then you go to the area. So is it a nice area? Is it easy to commute to other places? What's nearby? Is there a shop? We have a daughter, so is there a good daycare? Are there playgrounds? Is it a safe area? And inevitably, we will need to compromise on one of these things, because there is also one big aspect, and that is our budget. So then it's about in which of all these are we willing to compromise? What are we willing to sacrifice in exchange for something else? And the same goes with deciding on the career direction. That people, when I ask what directions have you considered, pretty long speech usually follows, because people look at it from the perspective of what they are interested in, what they think is the smart choice based on that they have heard there are many jobs, or they know somebody who does that job and has a lot of money, or they think that that's what companies are hiring for. Often even the influence of, for example, our parents or other people in our life who give well-meaning but not always good advice. There is comparison to other people, so like everybody in my age is a manager and I'm not a manager yet, so I should be a manager. And you're probably, just by me talking about this, you might feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed because if I considered all these different aspects, I would never make a decision, because they also usually go against each other. Like something I'm interested in doesn't maybe necessarily pay that well. Something that my parents approve of is not something I'm interested in. So if you try to find the perfect answer to all of these things, you're never gonna succeed. So it's gonna again come down to what are the aspects you actually care about. And then it also comes down a lot to verifying all this information. So without real proper research, people will come to me and they will tell me, this field is interesting, but the salaries are really shit. And I say, okay, can you tell me where you got that information from? And they will tell me, yeah, I had a friend and he had a really low salary. And I said, okay, well, that's a one person. What different companies pay different salaries. So let's not dismiss this entire field because we know one person who wasn't happy with their salary. Or then people try to be fortune tellers, and I think that that field will be affected by AI. Like maybe it will, but maybe that's actually a benefit. You can become the one who can collaborate with the AI pretty well. So I always recommend just starting with the interest, with like, what are you genuinely drawn to? Because each of us, we all have some interests, we all have some dreams and wishes, but instead of acknowledging them and thinking, okay, this is something I want, what are the steps that I could get it? Or let's find out more information how it actually works. I often see people that they start, in a way, talking themselves out of this direction for some reasons, that they start thinking of ways how it might not work out or why it might not be the smart decision. Basically convincing themselves like being where they are now, even though it makes them unhappy and it makes them feel stuck, is better than actually going after something else. And this has to do with basic human psychology, that we don't like change, and even when something is annoying, we still prefer that over something that we don't know and might potentially be even more annoying. But what my clients are willing to tolerate in their current job is often crazy. I created this kind of tool, like an audit or evaluation of my clients' current jobs, where they rank different areas and they share how happy they are with that field. And often the numbers are pretty low. Well, obviously, that's why they hire me, and that's why we start working towards a better direction for them. So they sometimes start from quite a bad position of being really unhappy in their current job. But then they are almost willing to only change for something that would then suddenly be 10 out of 10 in all the categories. Or that they find one minor aspect that is not 100% aligned with what they want. So they say, I better stay in this job that makes me miserable on a daily basis. But it's like, it's miserable that I know, but the unknown feels scarier. And especially when I work with people who have had negative experiences, and I think that is inherently part of everybody's career. So we all will, either we already have or we will at some point make a bad decision about a company or about a job. We will have a job that will not end on our terms. We will feel stuck. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will happen at some point. It's quite inevitable, but those are all solvable situations. But often when I work with people who have had more than they would deserve, their share of these negative experiences was larger than they should have, then instead of looking for some interesting and exciting career direction, they look at it from the perspective of how do I avoid the same negative experience? How do I avoid making the same mistake? And that really is not a very good place from which you should be making a decision. And these negative experiences, I wish they didn't happen. Obviously, I wish everybody just had happy careers, but if I have to think of positive aspect, it gives us better information of what to pay attention to in the interview process, of what questions to ask. Like for example, I am 100% certain that if I was looking for a job ever again, I would never join the same companies like the ones where I worked. They were not a good match for me. They were not bad inherently, but for me, for the type of person I am, for the values that I have, those were not a good match. And I just know I cannot end up in the same situation because I would now be able to spot it. I can now look back, think about the interviews, think about the lack of research I did before I joined these companies. And I can see quite clearly that if I spotted this again in some future interview, I would already know that that is not the right job for me. So with every experience you pick up, whether positive or negative, it equips you better with making the right decision in the future. Of course, if you learn from that experience, that is very important, because I also often see people join companies for their potential. That right now the company is kind of meh, they are not doing very well, they are nowhere near to being profitable, but what if it becomes very successful in the future? And I'm surprised that we are still in this kind of mindset, because, for example, I started working for a startup in 2019, and that was the peak of the startup era, and it felt like everything will be the next Facebook and the next Uber and the next Airbnb and whatever. And I mean, how many other Facebooks and Googles and Apples do we have? I think not many. And if we think outside of the US, we have almost none. So like the chance that you will join some company that is kind of meh now, but it's really gonna take off, is very, very slim, unless there are very clear indicators. So this is one of the most common mistakes that my client had, and they don't want to repeat in the future, is that they joined the company really for potential, that the job as it was like okay, but they joined maybe 10% for what it is now and 90% of what it's gonna become. And that was the same with me. I thought that I'm gonna join a growing company and it's just gonna grow and I'm gonna grow with it. And in most cases, the potential is gonna stay just that. And then you need to really think that that is potentially a very risky situation. That are you taking that risk? And are you joining the company for what it is right now? Is what it is right now exciting? Is the job as it is right now interesting? And if not, feel free to pass and move on to something else. So that's another aspect I would not necessarily consider when deciding the career direction. Like, it doesn't interest me now, but maybe it could in the future. This field is more of a bubble now, but maybe it will grow in the future. You can just, join it in the future when it's actually turning into something. There are so many promises and so many possibilities thrown out there. But if you build your career around always chasing the maybe next big thing, and none of the things actually became the big thing. You can just, chase the middle or small thing and have a very happy career that way. There are many people who are very happy with their jobs and have very successful, well-paid careers, and they don't work for, on paper, very exciting companies. They don't work for tech companies. They don't work for startups. You can be just as happy in a corporate. You can be just as happy in a company that isn't revolutionizing their industry. I think that when we are fresh out of college and we are in our 20s, it's quite common that we are chasing the coolness, and we are maybe placing more importance on that will our friends think that the company we work for is cool, than actually thinking of, is the job interesting? Is the company interesting? Are the people nice? Is there a good work-life balance? Will I have a good salary? These actually quite boring aspects that then can make a very happy job. So what's my main goal of this episode is to de-escalate the pressure that you need to figure out the next career direction from lots of different perspectives, from thinking what's the smart field. I mean, look a few years back, then the super smart field was considered to become a software developer, and that is the area that is now very heavily influenced by AI to the point where it causes massive mayhem on the job market, because so many people, back when this was really the thing, started studying software engineering, and by the time they were done with their studies, we had all these AI tools, and like entry-level people in software development are having a really, really hard time to actually secure jobs, something that would seem unimaginable 5 years ago. And because we just don't have this kind of insight into what's gonna happen, so it completely loses the point to second guess what's gonna happen. The only thing you cannot argue with, and that is 100% true right now, is your interest and the direction that actually speaks to you, something that you find yourself reading about after work, something you find yourself listening to podcasts about, you find yourself like imagining yourself in that position, then that is the only really true and honest indicator that you are onto something. And then figuring out how to get there is actually the simple thing. You can get in touch with me, we can work together, we can figure it out together. But I would always use that as the main basis for deciding what you should be doing next. And also within every single field, you can earn good money. It just depends how good and how advanced you are. And it would just be a shame if there is something you've been thinking about that really, really interests you. You have been considering for many, many years to never give it a try. That is exactly the kind of thing that then, if you've ever watched these videos of like 90 or 100-year-old people and they share it, if they have any kind of life regrets, it's often like that they weren't more authentic and they didn't go after what they really wanted. And often I see people don't even let themselves explore on a very low threshold. Just talking to people who work in that field, like sending one message on LinkedIn to someone who does the job you're interested in and asking them, hey, your job is exactly something I want to do. Would you mind telling me a little bit more about it? I can buy you a coffee, I can send you a gift card for a coffee, and we could set up an online chat and you could tell me all about it. And then maybe from what the person shares, you realize that, hey, that doesn't sound appealing, and you can move on. But the worst possible place is to consider all these different directions in your head, just rethinking it over and over, then making some panic decisions of applying to some random job you don't even want, and just feeling stuck and feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you on one hand are keeping all your options open, but on the other hand no cool opportunities are coming your way. And that's the point where people come to me and then we need to process all that, which is totally possible. If any of what I'm sharing in this episode you're thinking I am talking about you, then I can definitely help you. I am right now open to taking on new one-on-one clients, so you can fill out the form that I always leave in the show notes. Let me know just a little bit about your situation. We can set up an intro call and you can, let it all out, tell me what's happening, and I can tell you how and if I would be able to help you. And this episode can serve as a really good basis to instead of spiraling, considering all these different options, all these different aspects you could look about it, and instead to start thinking about some concrete steps to actually remove some of these choices. We have so many choices, how great. Like my parents had fraction of the opportunities I now have, but that also brings with it a lot of overwhelm, a lot of responsibility. And unless we actually make a choice and commit to it, we are the same stuck and the same boring careers that maybe some of our parents were stuck in for most of their lives. So after listening to this episode, you have my permission to stop overwhelming yourself with trying to come up with some very long-term career plan. You don't need to consider 100 different aspects. You can stop chasing the smart choice and what's smart for the future, and you just really have permission to be true to yourself. As cliche as it sounds, follow your passion at least to the point where you are allowing yourself to explore what that job would look like. And if you truly are someone who has zero clue what you want to do with your life, with your career, then please fill out the form in the show notes and get together with me, and we will figure it out together. Because life's too short, and wasting even a month of your time of being stuck in a boring job and not doing anything about it, that is just I cannot let that happen, basically, because I know how happy it made me when I finally figured out what I want to do, how much purpose and joy and happiness to my life that brought. And so since then I've been on a mission to help other people discover the same, because your job can be like such a huge source of joy and purpose, and it can be complement to your life. For me, I am excited for my free time. I am excited for my work time. I am excited to travel. I'm excited to spend time with my family, like all equally exciting. Every morning when it's work day, I am happy to drop off my daughter at the daycare and sit at my computer and do the work that I love doing so much. And I just have so many ideas what I want to do, and it's really all these different life aspects for me are source of energy. They like feed off of each other, all bring me excitement, and it used to seem so far-fetched that I don't need to be excited for the weekend. And I still find myself sometimes to say like, yay, it's Friday, and oh no, it's Sunday. But in reality, I don't mind. Like all these days bring me equal amounts of joy, and that is possible for you as well if you start right now with being more deliberate and actually deciding to go after the career direction that excites you. You decide to commit to it, you decide to explore, and maybe start taking steps towards turning that into reality. So I hope this was an inspiring episode. It brought some new ideas to you where you could take your career further, and it relieved some of that ever-present pressure from making the right choice for now, for the future, for yourself, for people around you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you in the next episode.